Welcome back to Miracles, Morals, and Messages. Today we'll explore one of the most moving and powerful stories from the Quran. The story of Prophet Yusuf, also known as Joseph in the Bible. It's a story filled with jealousy, betrayal, hardship, patience, forgiveness, and ultimately, triumph. In fact, the Quran itself refers to Yusuf's story as the most beautiful of stories. Even if you've never read the Quran or the Bible, this is a story you'll want to hear because it speaks to some of the deepest struggles of the human heart. Sibling rivalry, temptation, injustice, and the hope that no matter how dark life gets, faith and perseverance can carry us through. Yusuf's story begins with a dream. As a young boy, he tells his father, Prophet Yaqub, also known as Jacob, that he dreamed of 11 stars, the sun and the moon, bowing down to him. His father recognizes this as a sign of a great destiny, but also warns him not to share the dream with his brothers. Why? Because his brothers are already jealous of the love and attention their father gives him. That jealousy quickly grows into bitterness. The brothers plot against Yusuf. Some suggest killing him, but eventually they decide on another plan. They throw him into a deep well, leaving him to be found by travelers. To cover their tracks, they smear his shirt with false blood and tell their father that a wolf has devoured him. A caravan soon comes by, discovers Yusuf in the well, and sells him into slavery in Egypt. He is purchased by a high-ranking official, often called Al-Aziz, and grows up in his household. As Yusuf grows older, he becomes known for his wisdom and striking beauty. But this beauty also attracts unwanted attention. The wife of Al-Aziz attempts to seduce him. Yusuf resists, saying he would never betray his master or disobey God. Still, when she grabs his shirt in anger, it tears. Her lies lead to scandal. And although Yusuf is innocent, he is sent to prison to protect the family's honor. Now, prison might seem like the lowest point of Yusuf's life. But even there, his character shines. He gains a reputation for kindness and wisdom, and soon fellow prisoners come to him to interpret their dreams. By God's guidance, Yusuf interprets them accurately, and word of his gift begins to spread. Eventually, even the king of Egypt hears about Yusuf. Troubled by his own recurring dream of 7 fat cows eaten by 7 lean cows, and 7 green stalks of grain alongside 7 dry ones, the king calls for Yusuf. Yusuf interprets the dream as a warning. There will be 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. He advises the king to store grain during the good years to prepare for the hard times. Impressed, the king not only frees Yusuf, but places him in charge of Egypt's storehouses, one of the most powerful positions in the land. Years later, when the famine spreads across the region, Yusuf's brothers come to Egypt seeking food. They don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. Instead of seeking revenge, Yusuf tests their honesty, eventually revealing his identity in a deeply emotional moment. His brothers are stunned, ashamed, and fearful of what he might do, but Yusuf does something extraordinary. Instead of punishing them, he forgives them. He says, "No blame will there be upon you today. God will forgive you, and he is the most merciful of the merciful." Finally, Yusuf is reunited with his father, Yaqub. In the closing chapter of his story, that childhood dream comes true. His family bows in respect before him, not as worship, but as honor for the great role he has played. The story of Yusuf is unique in the Quran because it's told as one continuous narrative in chapter 12, Surah Yusuf. Unlike many other prophets whose stories appear in fragments across different chapters, Yusuf's tale is told from beginning to end, highlighting its importance. It also shares parallels with the biblical account in the book of Genesis, though the Quran emphasizes different details. In both traditions, Yusuf is a symbol of patience, integrity, and forgiveness. Historically, Yusuf's rise to power reflects the importance of Egypt as a center of ancient civilization. The mention of storing grain and preparing for famine shows remarkable insight into economic planning, lessons that remain relevant today. Culturally, the story addresses themes that cross all boundaries: jealousy within families, false accusations, the abuse of power, and ultimately the ability to forgive even the deepest betrayals. So what can we learn from the story of Prophet Yusuf? First, patience in hardship. Yusuf faced betrayal by his own brothers, injustice, imprisonment, and years of separation from his family. Yet through it all, he remained patient and trusted God's plan. Second, integrity in temptation. Even when offered wealth and desire, Yusuf stayed true to his principles. His refusal to compromise his values is a timeless lesson in resisting temptation. Third, forgiveness over revenge. Perhaps the most powerful moment is when Yusuf forgives his brothers. Instead of letting bitterness define him, he chooses compassion. That act of forgiveness heals not just himself, but his entire family. Finally, the story teaches us that our lowest points can prepare us for our highest purpose. Yusuf's time in the well, in slavery, and in prison weren't the end of his story. They were stepping stones to his eventual rise as a leader who saved nations during famine. The story of Prophet Yusuf is one of faith, resilience, and mercy. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope is never lost, and that forgiveness can transform not only our own hearts, but the lives of those around us. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Miracles, Morals, and Messages. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to our channel, where we bring you more stories from the world's great religions, told in a way that's easy to understand and meaningful for everyone. Until next time, may you carry the lessons of Yusuf's patience, integrity, and forgiveness with you in your own journey. And as always, if you have a story you'd like to see us cover, use the link in the video description to submit your request, and we'll do our best to get it included in our library.